Welcome to Revolutionary Motion, where we show you tennis from a different perspective. Today we're going to explain to you guys what open stance and closed stance mean and what you should probably use for yourself in order to hit your forehands or backhands. So let's start with a closed stance, because that's the more common stance that is used by most players at the moment. So the closed stance means that you're taking your last step forward diagonally towards the ball with your left foot if you're right-handed and you're setting up for a forehand. Now, the easiest way you can imagine that is that your hips are not open towards your opponent. You're not facing your opponent with your hips, but your hips are now pointed towards the side, so it is closed from your opponent's perspective. That's why closed stance. Your hips are not showing to your opponent, you are closed. On the contrary, the open stance means now your hips are open towards your opponent. You're taking your last step with your right foot. So that means now you're facing forward a lot more, so the hip position is a lot more open towards your opponent. Now, what are the differences between the two and what are they used for? If you're looking at the closed stance, because you're a lot more sideways, your hips are more pointed towards the side fence, you now don't have such an easy way of hitting a cross-court shot. Why? Because when you're trying to rotate into your balls or into your shots, you need to make sure that you can accelerate your rotation until the contact point, because otherwise you're using wasted energy. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to rotate the upper body, letting the racket go towards the ball. And as you can see, I'm not really flexible here. So if I rotate until this spot, I can rotate fast. But from here on out, it gets tight in my back. So I can't accelerate my rotation anymore. Or in other words, it's starting to slow down. So that means I don't want to rotate further than this point in the contact point. If I rotate further, I'm losing energy. So that means when I'm in this contact point, in this position, this contact point with my racket feels great and the ball would go down the line. If I rotated any further to get the ball cross court, it would now be an inefficient shot. I would waste some of the energy that I already created because I'm rotating a little bit too far. So that means the closed stance is not very suitable to hit a efficient cross-court shot on your forehand side. Now on the open stance, on the other hand, now my upper body can accelerate the rotation a lot further, so somewhere until maybe here, and I could make contact somewhere here very comfortably without losing any energy. Now this shot would go cross-court. If I, on the other hand, try to hit it down the line, I would have to make contact a little bit further back, meaning a little bit later in the trajectory of the ball. And that means now my racket has not accelerated to its full speed yet. So in other words, the open stance will help you to hit better cross-court shots, but your down-the-line shots will be a little bit softer if you're using the same amount of energy. Now you can see the pattern here. In a closed stance, I can hit better down-the-line shots. In an open stance, I can hit better cross-court shot. Now, the problem is, if you're using one stance for a cross-court shot and another stance for a down-the-line shot, your opponent will know what kind of shot is coming before you even hit the ball. So that means it's not very suitable for you to have two different stances depending on where you're trying to hit the ball. So you should try to figure out a stance that works for you in both scenarios. Now everybody does different things. Some players use open stance on almost every shot. Some people try to use closed stance on almost every shot. The only exception being when you're on the run, and it's very difficult to be on the run and hit with a closed stance because you just don't have any angle to accelerate into the ball. But both of that is fine. You can use an open stance, you can use a closed stance. We would recommend, however, to use more of a semi-open stance where you're a little bit open so you're actually able to hit the cross-court shot and the down-the-line shot with the same stance if you're setting up properly. So you can then create both shots at maybe 97% of its efficiency, of its perfect ideal efficiency, but your opponent won't know what's coming and you don't feel uncomfortable hitting either one of those two shots. In conclusion, if your coach asks you to open up your stance, what they want from you is to open up your hips towards your opponent or towards the court a little bit more. When they ask you to close your stance more, they're trying to have you turn a bit more sideways, having your hips facing the side fence, no matter if we're talking about a forehand or a backhand. Now, the second thing to keep in mind, A closed stance will help you to hit the ball down the line better. An open stance will help you to hit the ball cross court better. So try to find a stance somewhere in between where you feel comfortable to use both shots down the line and cross court, so your opponent doesn't know what's coming when they're looking at your stance.
Hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys soon.